Hey guys, welcome back to a special report from Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 10th of June, 2020.
There's a lot of crazy things going on right now.
There's a lot of crazy things going on right now.
If you didn't know it, if you didn't know that in Seattle, Washington, Antifa and a few Black Lives Matter, because Seattle's mostly just white liberals, have seized the day.
Yes.
Carpe diem.
Yes.
And have seized on the death
Now's
of
the time to seize a day.
Now's the time to seize Seattle.
No, that won't rhyme with the next part of that.
Well, that's what they're doing. This is absolutely insane. Activists have taken over an area in Seattle with barricades.
Wrongs will be righted if we're united. Let us see Seattle.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see my picture here, but this is the zone that they have picked. It's 6 city blocks, and it's so weird. I don't even know what to make of it. It's a thing. So, Michelle, you're going to bring up the live feed. We're gonna cover. I'm going to take you straight to the Black Lives Matter website, and I'm going to read to you what it says, and then I'm going to give you a biblical stance to what it says. And if we get taken off of YouTube for preaching the gospel, then this is the hill I guess we die on. I did not put in the title what I felt like needed to be put in the title, but you'll get the idea about I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter. Let's put it at the outset. Black Lives Matter. They matter. A matter of fact, they matter. Okay, so there is my pound of flesh. I believe it with all my heart. It's not a joke. It's not. I absolutely. If anybody has watched our show for this many years, to think that we at Resistance Chicks don't think that Black Lives Matter is absolutely ridiculous. We cover, what's going on in Africa. I believe Black Lives Matter. Does the European Union? No. So anyways, all right.
We're watching the live footage.
We are
right
watching
now.
the live feed of this communist, of the commies. Now, it looks like the Antifa mob is wanting to take over more Seattle neighborhoods. So, following the surrender of the East Precinct of the Seattle Police Department, and I sure hope I got Facebook people on this, because y'all needs to know what's going on right now, and you're just not going to hear about the fact that, dude, can we just imagine for 1 second if Second Amendment people had taken over 6 city blocks in any...
What's interesting about you saying that, though, is that these people do have weapons.
Oh, absolutely. They've armed themselves.
That's not their agenda, right?
No, they
so that's why
they want to defund everybody else.
But also interesting,
we just imagine for 1 second,
is that
Second Amendment people?
Sorry, I'm trying to share this.
Taken over
also, is the fact that
block.
They want to defund the police, right?
Right.
And they understand that in doing so, they have to have weapons, but they are also of the people that want all the gun control and to get rid of all the guns.
So weird.
It's a very
all right. So following the surrender of the East Precinct of the Seattle Police Department to an Antifa mob and the occupation of Seattle City Hall, they actually opened the door to Seattle City Hall to these protesters, gave them the key. A source on the ground in Seattle says that other police precincts around the city are preparing to be the next targets. Regarding the autonomous zone established by the Antifa-led mob, the source, whose anonymity we are protecting, says they bar media from entering and screen people coming in. They are walking around fully armed, talking about making their own currency and making their own flag.
No, this is so great.
The SPD is talking about abandoning the West Precinct now, the Seattle Police Department. The West Precinct has the 911 call center. This is just like the Occupy movement. Soon we will have feces and drugs everywhere and people getting assaulted and raped.
So what about the people that actually live there?
I don't know if it's just business. It could be just a business district.
Yeah, but even in business districts, there are There have to be homes.
They've been relocating everything quietly while the focus has been elsewhere. They know that it's only a matter of time before these fools have to direct their issues back on the police. Since yesterday, I haven't seen a single police officer or vehicle in downtown. Even when they took over the city hall, there were no signs of the police department at headquarters across the street.
So it's officially a no-go zone.
The main concern, according to the source, is that the Seattle Police Department West Precinct also houses the city's 911 call center.
That's a problem.
There have been reports of sensitive material and equipment being moved out of the West Precinct. Walk-in lobbies of all precincts are shut down as local officials appear to be conceding, handing over more of the city, as well as police precincts to Antifa.
So I'm actually...
But Antifa does not exist, and they are not organized. They're nobodies.
So they
But
say.
they can take over 6 city blocks. Nobody I know is organized enough to take over 6 city blocks. Hello. This should be blaring on every news. You go like this, because you got one. You got a little boogie.
I got a little boogie?
On this. There you go. I think got it.
How do you make a tissue dance?
Yeah, okay. Those running this they're calling themselves the Capitol Hill, Free Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. They are employing stop and frisk for everyone who walks through, and shaking down businesses for $500 for protection.
No, they aren't.
Now, this is the anti-cops.
This is the mafia.
This is what you get when you don't have police. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, 6 blocks.
All you gotta do is pay us $500 and then we will protect you from us. Like, it's bribery. It's not bribery. What is it when you,
Armani on Twitter says,
what is the word when you hold somebody up for money and like you're gonna hurt them unless they give you money? This,
it's a stick up. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, 6 blocks retaken back for the people. You are now leaving the USA.
Wait,
when you enter, long live the blank blank.
It's taken back for the people, but you gotta pay $500 for protection. You know, those businesses actually paid taxes for protection that you got rid of. Right? I already paid my dues.
Yeah. Yeah, this is absolutely crazy.
Are these people for real? James Stone wants to know on Facebook. Extortion. Thank you, Tom. On
Before
Periscope.
the COVID, Seattle police were actually operating at 60% capacity. Officers were laterally transferring to other municipalities, taking early retirement and resigning. Candidates were seeking employment in other cities, and academy classes did not have enough recruits to offset the losses. In exit interviews, the main reason given was that they were demonized and not supported by elected officials. A recent raise as part of contract negotiations did nothing to stem the exodus. And Andy Nago says the new Project Veritas exposed Antifa video reveals they had someone infiltrate the armed revolutionary group directly linked to the Tacoma ICE firebomber. These extremist organizations communicate openly on Twitter.
So, are we waiting on a video? So I love this comment here on Periscope here from Pecker. What an original. You sound like a very intelligent person. Says, I think you are overreacting to a few people. White Karens freaking out. So,
okay, let me just explain to you the definition of a Karen.
Yeah.
A definition of the Karen are people who go around putting their nose in other people's business. A Karen is somebody who says, hey, you need to pick up that dog poo, okay? A Karen is somebody who knocks on your door and says, please turn your music down, it's too loud. Guess what? You have visited the free Karen zone. We are libertarian-minded people, okay? I say, do what you want as long as you don't hurt other people and take over other people's property. As soon as you take over other people's property,
Yeah.
you cease
You know,
to
kind of.
be
Here's the deal, because I kind of see
a citizen
these
of the Republic.
These Antifa people are a little bit like a big group of
No,
Karens.
the Antifa are totally Karens. All of them are Karens.
Like you gotta do what we say. We know all the rules.
We're
If you don't
telling
do
on
what
you.
we say, we're
We're-
telling. If you don't do what we say, we're taking over your city.
And if you don't say what we want you to say, then we're going to dox you and we're going to censor you and
Yeah.
we're going to get YouTube to
And
take
you know
you
what?
off.
You know what?
Oh my gosh, it's
I'm
the
gonna
left
cancel you.
Karens who have tried to censor us more than anything else, demonetized us. It's the Karens who have been on our channel reporting us to YouTube for just being normal people.
So you gotta understand.
Oh my gosh, there's two genders. Report them for hate speech.
Dude, bring it down. Okay, listen, here's the deal. I don't know who you are. You're obviously a very intelligent person using a screen name like that. But I don't think you quite understand what a Karen really is. Okay, so maybe go back, refresh, and then come back again.
Yeah.
And start over.
Yeah.
Okay?
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Supporters of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone have put directions on social media to topple a nearby Confederate veterans memorial that is in a private cemetery. Ann Coulter says, way to crack down on the lunatics, Mayor. The Seattle Department of Transportation has set up porta potties for the militants.
Gotta go when you gotta go.
You gotta go where you gotta go.
You gotta go. So here's the deal. Like, I don't want the police, but I want my free porta potty.
Ben Shapiro says, happy to help subsidize woke liberal immigration into the Seattle Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Surely the demand must be immense to join such a forward-thinking project.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
wait, here we go. Are you ready for the demands?
Yeah, we're ready. Oh, they've got demands.
Oh, always got demands, baby. We're bringing in the demands.
So they aren't really, for like real reform, they're not really like wanting their currency and stuff. They just are saying we're threatening to do
this. The radical left-wing militia of anarchists that took over Seattle City Hall this week released a long list of demands, including candy every single day. Yes! Wednesday to return its newly established...
Maybe if they had some Snickers, this wouldn't be happening.
So here we have thousands. They don't like Jerry Durkin. Jenny Durkin.
That's original.
Let me explain something to y'all. This is mostly,
let me make us big here.
This is mostly rich white kids who are in college right now spending mommy and daddy's money.
And you know what?
Do you understand?
Because
they are bored.
Well, they gotta be
bored. They can't go to the movies. They're not going to the amusement park.
That's just it.
They have created their own amusement park. They're living in it. They are bored. They are BORED. Bored.
This isn't about police brutality.
This
isn't about Black Lives Matter.
No.
It's just a bunch of people that they are bored to death. And they just want something to do. They're like, they got the chance. They got stuff going on.
Okay,
like carnivals and stuff this year have all been canceled. So they're like, we got this.
We got this.
We're gonna gather together, and
we are our own clowns.
We the daggum elephant. We get to also say that we are woke and we are doing this for a cause.
They just bored, baby.
While we're having a good time.
Among them include the total abolition of the city's police force, the blanket exoneration of felons.
Okay, the same person with the intelligent screen name here on Periscope, very very smart person. No, Ben, you say as long as you want. You're totally allowed to be here. I welcome you here. You might learn something. So they want to they want to release
all the felons.
All felons. Now,
rapists. Hello, guys.
So you say, we're about police brutality, which you based on 5 seconds of a show. That's what you're saying here, okay? But you, I'm assuming, okay, are all about free rape, free murder, free pedophilia, free whatever, do whatever you want to do, commit any crimes against against anybody that you want, because their demands, and if you're supporting them, are to free all the felons. This is the intelligence behind this movement. I bow to it.
Let me explain.
It far surpasses my own.
Let me give you. We try not to bring the bad news because I know I've been making some of my viewers sick by showing them videos of what's been happening. Well, in Georgia, an 83-year-old woman was died after being beaten and set on fire. This was in 2016. Now, there were 5 people involved in this. in this crime.
Wow.
If you don't have the police, people like this go on rampages, they do crazy things and set 83-year-old women on fire.
But
is
they
this
should
okay
go
with
free.
you?
My demand is that those people go free.
Explicit segregation in hospitals and schools. They exonerate explicit segregation. I don't understand what this even means. They want explicit segregation in hospitals and schools. They want white and black kids to be separated. I don't understand. The mandatory re-education of teachers and the public servants to adhere to the New World Order after ousting the progressive mayor. For those doubting whether protester calls to defund police mean what the two words say it means, the Seattle demonstrators could not have been more clear. The Seattle Police Department and attached court system are beyond reform. We do not request reform. We demand abolition. This means 100% of funding, including existing pensions for Seattle police. Emphasis theirs. The protesters seem to have already borne the fruit of their new lawless community, where homeless people we invited reportedly stole their food. No, this is great. This is great. So, somebody from the autonomous zone says, alert, #2. The homeless people we invited took away all the food at the Capitol Hill autonomous zone. We need more food to keep the area operational. Please, if possible, bring vegan meat substitutes, fruits, oats, soy products, etc. Anything to help us eat. This is Laura so-and-so, who is one of the leaders of this. Listen, and somebody said, kid, soy products are what got you into this mess in the first place.
And that's a fact check. It's sad. Okay. It's just
lay
sad.
off. No, honey. You need to lay off the soy. Put down the soy burger.
Here's the deal.
Put down the vegan meats. Just say no. If you was gonna go,
you can't call it. They're meat substitutes.
put down the vegan meat substitutes because they're all made from soy, honey child. I don't think you understand that they are high in estrogen. And if you are a male, then legit, men who drink soy milk have lower sperm counts.
Their testosterone levels are like non-existent.
Like legit soy boys. Soy boys.
They're not men.
Low testosterone, low musculature. It's a sad day in Seattle where the soy boys are demanding vegan meat substitutes.
You know what? Hang on though,
because the homeless people stole their food.
So these people are these places have been occupied by a bunch of soy boys. Now,
and girls.
I have not run across very many African American soy boys or vegans. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm just saying the intelligence level to not go that route.
Antifa, black
is
dudes,
a little bit higher.
Antifa, black dudes.
Black dudes be like, I want my testosterone and my sperm.
Give me the meat, baby. If I'm eating a steak, I don't want a soy steak.
Now, I'm not saying that they have to not be vegan, but you really got to lay off the soy. If you want to do your vegan thing, do your daggum vegan thing. I ain't going to judge, okay? But I am here to tell you that soy is unhealthy. Even females do not want excess estrogen. It throws you all out of whack.
All right, so what else do they want? In the meantime, the anarchy social justice warriors are demanding a complete ban on the use of force of any kind, enhanced reparations for police brutality, the destruction of the prison system, and the doxing of law enforcement officers accused of using excessive force. Given the erosion of the presumptive innocence under the Me Too movement, one could imagine what could go wrong. In the absence of law enforcement, the Seattle rioters are insisting that replacing an ordered society with a socialist utopia will provide the cure to the dark racist empire's perilous ills, featuring a new 21st century era of segregation. We demand that the funding previously used for the Seattle Police Department be redirected into socialized health and medicine for the city of Seattle, free public housing, because housing is a right, not a privilege.
Right. You have the right to life, liberty,
Public
and housing.
Education to decrease the average class
of
size in city
Independence.
schools and increase teacher salary. Naturalization services for immigrants to the United States living here undocumented. We demand they be called undocumented because no person is illegal. And general community development, parks, etc. We want more playgrounds. Okay. Add to that free college, extreme rent controls, affirmative action for black-owned businesses, and radical re-education for those working in schools, medical care, or the media mass as anti-bias training. If the protester demands sound familiar, that's because they are. The radical re-education efforts are reminiscent of attempts in communist regimes like China and the Soviet Union to force its people into submission by regulating free thought to a totalitarian government cementing an authoritarian grip. They called them struggle sessions. And they would bring you into a stadium and demand you humiliate yourself, confess your faults in front of everybody with the intent of encouraging you to make it so bad that you would commit suicide.
Wow.
Yes. All right, but guess what, guys? We have a new leader in the Seattle zone.
We have a new leader.
Yes, his name is a Seattle local named Raz Simone established himself and his crew as the police of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Now remember, let me finish. In the absence of normal police, whoever has whoever has more guns and more strength becomes the police. Because guess what, guys? Whether you like it or not, somebody is always in control. Okay? He is a warlord, and his crew is assaulting anyone who steps out of line. A little bit worse than maybe you're going to want your namby-pamby Pride Month Seattle police back. Unlike real police, there's no accountability for discipline. It's just violence. Here's Raz and his crew.
Yeah, we know. You don't know the owner of this place? The owner that's actually being nice and letting us stay here? You forgot, we are the police of this community now. We are the leaders of this community now. Right, but people do work here and live here. Someone does work here and live here.
Like, I feel like
you're being disrespectful. That's what the point is.
Someone does work here and live here. The precinct ain't destroyed, bro, and we stopped them from doing that.
So Raz and his crew are trying to stop the spray painters.
Yeah.
Okay. But I feel like they've seen too much like Divergent. You know, those kinds of movies.
Assholes.
So then a fight.
We got a scuffle. Oh, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. Curse word. Sorry.
So there's Raz.
Okay.
He and his crew are in charge.
He's in charge.
They're in charge.
Self-proclaimed in charge.
They are large, Marge, and in charge. Let's see. I got a couple more, I think, on. Here we go. Seattle Autonomous Zone. Who is Raz Simone, and who is he and his crew accountable to? Anyone? Are they the de facto authority here now? If so, doesn't that basically make them warlords? Raz's crew is self-appointed, heavily armed, and has indicated their intention to police the area and has engaged in the use of force. I am unaware of any rival street force of their stature expressing the desire to hold authority. You know what these guys are? Wannabe po-po. They just have always wanted to be the po-po. And so, you know, when it gets their chance, they're like, this is how we gonna be the police. Because they want to be the police. And guess what? Let me explain something to you. You could have been the police. You could have been a good cop. You could have changed your country. The power vacuum has apparently been filled.
I feel like if I want to make changes in our government, then I would run for office, right? So first we start with the government of the small family unit. You make changes in your family, and then so if you want to make changes, you.
So in that video, we might have missed them saying, "We are the police now."
I heard him say it.
We are the police now. Here we have Raz right here. So, all right.
Lancer says, hang on here on YouTube, I appreciate your spirit, but assuming Antifa is nothing but soy is a dangerous assumption. There's been multiple Navy and Air Force Antifa. One killed a cop and a martial artist And is a martial artist, a fit martial artist, Antifa. So we're not saying that they are all soy boys.
Oh no, but they are. Here's the thing.
But
they're not. They are very much
army that they have.
No. They are soy boys.
But
what they use are weapons. And even a child with a gun, or a child with a Molotov cocktail, or a child with a lot of these weapons that they're using can cause harm. Okay? Soy boys as in physically weak. They are physically weak. Physically. Okay? Mentally, I don't know so much about them, but they are criminal minded. And you can do a lot with a criminal mind. Okay? And so no, I don't underestimate their desire. But here, let me put it this way. If they ate meat, we might lose our country. So let's be thankful that Antifa does not eat meat. Okay, you know why? Because we have people in this country who eat meat and own guns. And if they turn on us, it could be ugly. Okay? And they serve and protect.
Well, I think I agree with Lancer, because I know for a fact that Antifa has leaders in it that come from all of these like military, and they aren't soy boys, okay? They are well trained, highly trained, but the vast leaders that we see and we hear from, and all the ones on camera that you see,
all soy boys.
They are all soy boys.
Okay, so the Antifa at the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle has a subreddit set up. They are posting about making homemade chemical weapons, maintaining supply lines, and how to use those armed with guns to push back police. Number one, electricity and water could be cut to the autonomous zone. As many generators as possible ought to be acquired to maintain essential operations. See, what I mean by soy boy is they're playing movie. And I do believe that even if you're playing movie, you can cause damage. Sure. And you can hurt people.
Yeah.
But they are playing. It's a game. They're playing. Okay, I know. Listen, we have people in the deep state who know what they're doing. They tried to undermine a president and have a coup. Those guys actually have like legit smarts. These people are playing a game, but it's a deadly game that they're playing.
Well, but I think that there are several viewers on here, and that I would tend to agree with, that this is more than like, okay, so you have the leaders that are instigating all of this. They are not playing a game.
No, I don't mean it like that. I know,
it is a game to them.
No, the leader, even for the leaders, they have put themselves, because they have grown up because they've grown up with video games. They're playing this as a game, but it's a deadly game. Don't you maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, but to them, this isn't real. See, this isn't real life, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. These aren't legit, real cartel criminals.
Right.
Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like Mexican cartel criminals, if they're going to take over a city block, they know they're going to jail or they're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay? These people are not like all the way there.
I agree.
Okay? It's not sane to think that you can take over
yelling into
that
the
you can take over a 6 city blocks.
Okay.
They're children in their minds. They have not fully developed.
I still agree. I still think that there are leaders in there that are, though. But carry on.
If the Mexican cartel went to take over 6 city blocks, it would be a legit thing. Okay. As many generators as possible ought to be required to maintain essential operations within the zone, and gasoline should be stocked and stored throughout the zone. First, to prevent large fires, and second, so that the entire stock isn't lost with the loss of a single area. Things you should never do. There are likely cleaning supplies somewhere in the stores in the autonomous zone. Bleach will be of interest. The closest pool supply stores in the autonomous zone are these places. They almost certainly carry bulk hydrochloric acid. Combining these will readily produce chlorine gas, which, if deployed on a group, will force them to use gas masks. Do you understand? This is like Assad gassing.
We haven't reached this level.
Here's the thing. No. If they were legit real, Barr would be at their door. You're a domestic terror. I'm arresting you all, and I'm putting you into jail.
Okay, yes, but what I'm saying is, for them, okay, you pull this kind of stunt, okay, and trust me, there are enough redneck, gun-toting Second Amendment Americans out there that actually could pull this off. people out there, if the government comes against you to try to take your freedoms and your liberty, and we literally have fascist dictators that come knocking on doors and pulling people from homes and like Hitler Nazi type stuff. I think that people don't really understand what Hitler did. That's when you do this. Am I making sense? Like, that's when you say, no, we will barricade ourselves against your army tanks and all this, that, and the other if we know that you are, killing people, slaying them in the streets, stealing people's homes, putting people into re-education camps.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying.
Right, so, like, if that were to ever happen, which is what we are supposed to, the reason why we're supposed to have a well-regulated militia is if the government does ever turn on us like that, this is the type of reaction that you might have. Okay? But we aren't anywhere near that. Okay? They are thinking that General Mao is starving the people, like millions are dying in the streets every day.
So let me explain to you where a lot of this is coming from. Antifa and BLM have joined hands, okay? If you guys don't know about the foundation of BLM, one of my friends, Christian friends, sent me a really good article, and I'm going to read it to you. But we're just going to go to Black Lives Matter. This is the official website. Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murder. Black Lives Matter Foundation, Inc. is a global organization in the U.S., UK, and Canada whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on black communities by the state and vigilantes. By combating and counteracting acts of violence, creating space for black imagination and innovation, and centering black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives. Now that sounds
good.
Good. We're expansive. We are a collective of liberators who believe in an inclusive and spacious movement. We also believe that in order to win and bring as many people with us along the way, we must move beyond the narrow nationalism that is all too prevalent in black communities. We must ensure we are building a movement that brings all of us to the front. We affirm black lives of black, queer, and trans folk, disabled folks, undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all black lives along the gender spectrum. Do you understand the mindset? Now, bam, one thing. They want the ideology of gender fluidity. You put that into schools, what does that mean? Okay? Confusion. Our network centers those who have been marginalized within black liberation movements. We are working for a world where black lives are no longer systematically targeted for demise. Pretty decent, I guess, as long as. But that big thing on the two of them are queer, black queer women. The gender spectrum. We see this with
two of who?
The founders.
Okay.
You see this.
So the founders have more than just the Black Lives Matter
exactly
agenda, which you're allowed to have more than one agenda, but the fact that they're including that.
No, it's what it is. I honestly think they have their own agenda.
Yeah.
And they're capitalizing on these tragedies.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try to be careful with how I'm saying this, because honestly, InfoWars, Greg Reese put together an amazing video. Black Lives Matter is a globalist Trojan horse. Puts it all together in like 5 minutes, and that's taken off of YouTube, so I can't play it for you.
Right.
But he puts it all together. So I'm trying to tread lightly, right, to explain this stuff to you.
It's one thing. Here's the deal. It's one thing to say Black Lives Matter and to feel it and to be behind that, and awesome, great, fine, that's all right. It's another thing to actually visit the website and the movement and get down to the nitty and gritty for what their agenda is, right, which is different than the heart agenda right behind just saying Black Lives Matter.
So here every day we could recommit to healing ourselves and each other and to co-creating alongside comrades. Comrades is, guys, nobody says comrades unless you're communist. Like, people don't say that. Allies and a family culture where each person feels seen, heard, and supported. Okay, I don't have a problem with the seen, heard, and supported stuff. I have a problem with comrades. Okay, I'm going to tell you where I have another. We make space for transgender brothers and sisters. I want to get to, we make our spaces family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. We dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so that they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. We foster a queer affirming network as we gather. So we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless he, she, they disclose otherwise. And I don't mind. And then they culture an intergenerational communal network free of ageism. There's a lot of good little code words in here, but there's a lot of crazy things in here.
Well, and here's the deal. So, one thing that has happened during this movement, this time around, because this keeps happening, is that I have seen my Christian brothers and sisters jump on this.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Right.
And it's commendable.
Sure.
Okay? It's because your heart is like, I care.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But we must be wise as serpents and harmless as doves,
right,
and understand
mm-hmm,
the satanic agenda that they are trying to push, and they actually are not trying to push unity or actually caring about Black lives. They have a demonic, satanic, ripping the family apart, homosexuality, transgender, gender fluid, communistic agenda.
Now, to be clear, we are not talking about Black Lives Matter group. We're talking about the foundation, the group, this website right here.
Yes.
BlackLivesMatter.com. Okay, the group that actually organizes a lot of these rallies.
Yeah.
Goes into these places and wants to defund the police. Let me go over here to Breitbart. As citizens around the U.S. protest police brutality and racial inequalities, all of us, their rallying cry has been the slogan Black Lives Matter, a declaration of God-given value for Americans who feel marginalized. Yet the slogan was born of a political organization, now rolling in donations from massive corporations hoping to establish their social justice bona fides, whose larger agenda has gone largely unexamined. BLM, Global Network Foundation, is a largely decentralized international organization listing regional chapters instead of particular leaders. It was founded by 3 women, one of whom identifies as queer, Patrice Khan-Coolers, Opal Tomini, and Alicia Garza. On its What We Believe page, they describe itself as a movement for freedom, liberation, justice, but its definition of those terms includes radical changes to basic societal norms. For instance, the organization's What We Believe page asserts that these goals can only be achieved through the disruption of Western prescribed nuclear family structure.
The way that God designed it.
They want extended families and villages. That is communist.
It is. And what we saw after, the civil rights movement and stuff like that, we saw Black families rise up. That's why we put on the thumbnail today, Black families matter.
Sure.
They matter to us. They matter to our society. And what this leftist agenda has done purposefully, remember,
right?
The party of slaves was the Democrat Party. They didn't switch. They thought, we still need to control the Black people. So how do we do that? We have to get them hooked on welfare. How do we tear down the Black family, the nuclear family, right? Nucleus. That's what we want. Anyway, how do we tear that apart? We have to incentivize having children out of wedlock. Okay?
More money if you're single.
You get more money if you're a single parent. And so these families split up for the welfare. And as the family disintegrated, so did their lives. So as we here at Resistance Chicks say, Black families matter, we are all about creating the nuclear family.
So wait, let me point this out. Breitbart points it out. Listen to this. We read over this. Did you catch this? By supporting each other as extended families and villages, that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable.
So
wait, stop. The word fathers is deliberately excluded.
That's sad.
Replaced by the gender-neutral parents, despite already naming mothers as the pillars of the family.
Unbelievable.
Fathers, no more. And it's almost as if...
So it's a feminist movement.
It's almost as if Satan had designed it himself to perpetuate the harm happening. You're not gonna clean up or help black communities until we start encouraging everyone to have a family. Until and that's the whole other story. But my biggest beef is with the NBA players who father children out of wedlock and do not marry the mother of their children, thus telling their children that your life doesn't matter, your black life doesn't matter. When a celebrity or an athlete has a child and does not marry the mother of that child, knowing full well that children need a mother and a father to have their best life.
But this movement does not believe that children need a mother and a father to have their best life.
The statement goes on to denigrate male influence on the family as oppressive. We build a space that affirms black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered, except for the whole Black Lives Matter movement centers around black men who are killed.
Exactly. So they're
using them.
It's wrong.
The group says calling single mothers double shifts of working and parenting a patriarchal practice. But what about their fathers? What about fathers? On a page describing the group's Her Story, not history, Her Story.
Like BLM, the word history actually originates with... Okay, go ahead.
BLM writes that part of the reason for its emphasis on intersectional sexual politics is that black liberation movements have historically overemphasized the voice and the role of straight men. Black liberation movements in this country have created room, space, and leadership mostly for black heterosexual cisgender men, leaving women, queer, and transgender people and others either out of the movement or in the background to move the work forward with little or no recognition. As a network, we have always recognized the need to center the leadership of women and queer and trans people. Center them. As such, the What We Believe statement explicitly endorses LGBTQ subversion of biological sex. We foster a queer forming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless they disclose otherwise. In contrast, some black leaders who promote racial unity assert that black communities continue to struggle because of so-called progressive social policies that have incentivized single mother families. Reverend Bill Owens, president of the Coalition of African American Pastors, told Breitbart News recently one of the primary reasons racial tension still exists is because of policies that have torn apart the fabric of black families. We've seen decades of policies that help destroy the black family and the black community. Black Lives Matter is under renewed scrutiny after a string of corporations and celebrities announced massive donations for the BLM Foundation and the BLM Action Fund. Managing Director Kaylee Scales held an Ask Me Anything Q&A on Reddit where users extricated her evasive answers on how the organization spent its money and accusations of anti-Semitism. Surprisingly, Scales did offer a tepid condemnation of violent protests, looting of businesses, and property destruction in protests around the country. We advocate for peaceful protests in every instance and do not condone looting or destruction of any kind. We also believe violations of property should never be equated with violations of human life. This answer is a marked departure from a quote shared by the organizations in 2014, blaming riots in Ferguson, Missouri on racist white folks. BLM social media pages have remained silent on the violence seen in this year's demonstrations. We're calling for divestment in police in order to support more teachers, mental health restorative services, and community resilience departments, social workers, and government resource liaisons. Modern-day policing institutions have their roots in slave catching. These systems were created to hunt, maim, and kill black people. And as a result of centuries-old anti-black attitudes codified into law, simply put, the criminal justice system in this country, including law enforcement and incarceration, is actually working the way it has intended to. So, there you have it. But I have, let me bring you...
I feel sorry for legitimate people of what they believe is the Black Lives Matter movement.
I do.
Who have no idea.
Right.
That's what's at the bottom of this.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to bring it to you, because if you're going to support a movement, you need to know what that movement stands for, and you need to be able to support every part of that movement.
Right.
Otherwise, you have to separate yourself, and you will have to say, listen, I believe XYZ, but I can't associate myself with this because this is wrong. It kind of reminds me of the preterists of when you're talking about eschatology, which is end times beliefs. And our Bible studies tend to kind of lean a little bit like that, but then they go like all kind of cray-cray. So we have to say, you know what? I denounce that. Let me tell you in detail what I really do believe. And it's more difficult. It would be easier to just say, oh yeah, I'm a fill in the blank. Just put yourself in a box, right? But you can't. And so people that want to align themselves with the BLM movement, if you can't align 100% with that, if you're a Christian and you don't want to raise your children believing that there are multiple genders or that homosexuality is okay and normal and God's design,
you're supporting the
you're going to have to clarify.
Right.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, because you can't let the word of God in the name of Jesus be
sullied with that kind of stuff.
So here we have Larry Elder. Police protest over institutional racism. What institutional racism? Studies not only show do not support disproportionate use of deadly force against black suspects. If anything, the police are more hesitant, more reluctant to use deadly force on blacks than whites.
Everybody has agreed that the man should not have died under those circumstances.
Right.
It's not like there's some sort of controversy over it. I'm a child of the 50s and the 60s. And during the 50s and the 60s, there were protests.
This is Larry Elder, for those of you that asked.
Of blacks. There were protests over the Vietnam War. Much of the country felt it was an unwise war, an immoral war. A lot of the country felt differently. My point is, these were legitimate bases for street protests. What's the basis right now? The narrative that the police are mowing down black people? It's a false narrative. It's not true. Hey, if it were true, a lot of us would be out in the streets protesting. It is not true. And isn't that good news? According to the Washington Post, there were 9 unarmed black men who were shot and killed by the police in 2019. Guess how many white men who were unarmed and were killed by the police, shot and killed by the police? 19. When did the street protests occur? And according to the CDC, over the last half century or so, the rate of police shootings against blacks have declined 75%. Not a typo, 75%. While the rate of police shooting of whites has flatlined. So one can even argue that whites are more at jeopardy of the police than blacks. Why do I say that? A young black man is around 8 times more likely to be a victim of a homicide than a young white man. In fact, the number one cause of preventable death for young white men is homicides. The number one cause of death, preventable or otherwise, for young black men, homicide. And almost always killed by another young black man. So what are we talking about here? Last year, there were roughly 7,000 black homicide victims. Almost all of them were killed by other blacks. And when it comes to interracial homicide, which is rare, last year, in recent years, it averaged about 750 interracial black-white instances of homicide. 500 whites were killed by blacks, 250 blacks killed by whites. So blacks at 13% of the population are killing twice as many whites at 61% of the population. And LeBron James put out a tweet after the death of Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, and said that we're literally being tracked and terrorized and followed every time we leave our homes.
Hunted down.
Really?
Wait, he's got 3 of them here.
Because you can only put 2 minutes on.
Right. Yeah.
When you upload a video to
Twitter. Yeah, and I gotta go backwards here.
Look at a city like Chicago. Chicago's around a third black, a third white, a third Hispanic. However, 70% of the homicides are black on black. And about 75% of those cases are unsolved. Honestly. And when it comes to non-homicide, interracial, violent black-white acts, in any given year, recently, they're around 600,000. In 85 to 90% of the cases, it involves a black perpetrator and a white victim. Only 15% or so the other way around. So what are we talking about here? The only question we ought to be asking ourselves is, why is the crime rate so high in the black community that causes the police to cause there to be so many interactions with black people? And the answer, in my opinion, is the absence of fathers.
Thank you.
Forget about Larry Elder. Barack Obama said
Which
a kid
BLM wants to
raised
get
by
rid
a
of.
father is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. It is the number one social problem in this country in general, and in the black community in particular. And the question is why? In 1965, 25% of black kids were born outside of wedlock. Now that number is 70%. Now you could argue that 25% had something to do with race and slavery and Jim Crow. But how do you explain the out-of-wedlock birth rate in the black community going from 25% in 1965 to almost 70% now? You cannot pin that on slavery and on Jim Crow. It is the welfare state.
Yeah.
And what we've done with the welfare state is we've incentivized women to marry the government, and we've incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And we're not having had a discussion about that. Dean Baquet is the executive editor of the New York Times. He happened to be black. And he hired a conservative writer as a columnist named Bret Stephens. And Bret Stephens' first column was a column in which he wrote about his skepticism about climate change. And Dean Baquet said a bunch of people contacted the New York Times and canceled their subscriptions. And Baquet admitted that as a general rule, the left does not want to hear thoughtful disagreement. He said that publicly. Well, as a general rule, the black left doesn't believe there's such thing as thoughtful disagreement. We need to have thoughtful disagreement within the black community and cut out this nonsense.
Wait, we got one more.
That's causing people to get hurt and destroying property values. In many of these cities, property values will never, ever recover. And so a small minority of looters that both Obama once referred to as thugs and Joe Biden once referred to as thugs. When Trump does, he's of course a racist.
Right.
So a small minority of protesters / rioters will destroy the property values for the overwhelming majority of hardworking, law-abiding, tax-abstaining black people who are now at risk because of this. It is simply absurd. The facts do not warrant these wide protests. And regarding the police reforms, one more thing. I live in LA. And in LA from 1992 to 2002, we had back-to-back black police chiefs, including one during the O.J. Simpson case. His name was Willie Williams. He did a full study during the trial to find out whether anybody had done anything wrong with the evidence. And he came out with a report and said nobody did anything wrong. It didn't matter. And regarding the LAPD, you can't get a more diverse police force. What does the left always say? We want a police force that looks like the community. Well, you got one. Around half of the cops here in LA are Hispanic. Around 30% are white. A little under 10% are black. The rest are Asian Pacific Islander. And we still have protests on the grounds of, wait for it, institutional racism. Come on. 2015, Freddie Gray died in Baltimore. Look at the lineup. The mayor, black. The number 1 and number 2 department heads in the police department, black. City council, 100% Democrat. Majority black. The state attorney who brought the charges against the 6 officers, black. 3 of the 6 officers, black. The judge before whom 2 of the cases were tried, black. The U.S. attorney at the time, black. The president of the United States at the time, black. And we're still talking about institutional racism? Remember what comedian Wanda Sykes said shortly after Obama got elected? How are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? So can we stop complaining about the man when all too often we are the man? Many of these cities are run by Democrats, some run by blacks. All of them are the ones appointing the police department chiefs, and we're still talking about institutional racism? Let's knock it off, and let's realize we live in the greatest country in earth. Let's pick up our cards, and let's deal them to the best of our ability. I'm Larry Elder. Peace out.
I love him.
He does
so
so
much.
fast.
He's so
he knows
amazing.
Twitter numbers like nobody's business.
He's so awesome. Here's the deal. The way that Larry Elder breaks that down is he brings facts that you're not going to find on the mainstream media. You're not going to find those facts in the narrative of passion that they want to rope you in with,
Right.
that you are now woke and you are now part of this movement. And the reason why my Christian friends are being so taken by this is because your hearts are in the right place.
Well, I told my friend
care.
that this is the angel of light. The devil is coming as an angel of
Exactly.
light. And he has...
with lies and deception.
Right, exactly. Here's the thing.
And capitalizing
on fear, too.
Well, not just fear, but on your good heart.
Here we have Raynard Jackson accuses CNN of putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer. Trump held a roundtable on race relations today.
Raynard Jackson, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Daryl, for inviting us to this roundtable here. I'm from St. Louis originally, live here in Virginia. But what I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, is kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to say to all the media assembled here that I wish they would quit lying about what you've done specifically for the black community. So you got radical liberal journalists like Joy Reid from MSNBC, Don Lemon from CNN, Roland Martin, who are putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer, who are killing more black folks than any white person with a sheet over their face. How are they doing it? Spreading these lies about the economy you had, Mr. President, before the virus was a continuation of Obama. That's just factually not true. I have a degree in accounting. I keep up with the economy. They're lying. So to all these folks on MSNBC, CNN, Roland Martin, what, you afraid to have real black Republicans who know what the hell they're talking about? If you want to know the truth, if you want us to dissect the Obama economy, let's do it. And I think, Mr. President, your record will win the debate. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's really good.
It is good.
And they probably shut that off. Like, they probably wanted this roundtable to be live, and they were like, as soon as they started talking, just cut the feed. They do that all the time.
Yeah.
They are always cutting feed from a narrative that doesn't align. You do realize that these news agencies are supposed to just report the news, what is happening, right? But they have become a curator of a message, and they believe that it is their moral duty not to allow a message out that does not align with what they believe is right and wrong. And that's why instead of just reporting on the news or playing that video for their audience, who would probably want to hear it, even if their audience didn't agree with it, so that they can know what the other side is thinking, they will just cut it all together. And so what they do is they create a narrative, and they feed it to the masses, and the masses gobble it up because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. I just wanted to give a shout out. Larry Elder has a documentary movie coming out in about a week and a half.
Awesome.
It's called Uncle Tom because everybody calls him Uncle Tom.
Most people are completely oblivious to the history of the Democratic Party.
The party of slavery,
The history of the Democratic Party.
Jim Crow laws.
They're erasing all of the history of this country.
You don't know what you don't know.
History. The real history, not the revisionist history.
If you are educated,
Black people have been taught
A narrative that has been created.
you're actually miseducated.
And that's when I realized I've been lied to.
I had been misled.
It unraveled everything that I knew to be true.
I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Our cousin Tim says here on Facebook, COVID was being disapproved. The actual numbers were coming in with facts that it isn't as contagious as first thought. Businesses were opening, were shedding masks. Well, that didn't work for them. The media hyped it up, so time for something else. They waited until the next act of violence, and they prepared for it and took advantage of the situation, and here we are. There is always something behind the situation. Look closer at the agendas and the motivation. And he says, yep, they are using emotions and corrupting the good hearts of people to fill the left agenda. They are crafty and smart, and yes, it's as evil. It is evil, and it is the work of the devil.
you're absolutely right. You want to know why? Because while the left is complaining about what's going on with police, I have a video that I'm going to share with you of the Harvard statistician who put together the stats that everybody has been quoting recently, that police are more likely to shoot a white unarmed subject or even a white subject than a black subject.
Right.
Okay?
Accounting for the disparity of
How often you come in contact with police.
Yeah.
Yes. But I have and Horatio sent me a video, and it's very well balanced. I'm going to bring some because black men are more likely to have hands put on them and have non-lethal action taken against them. So there are some reforms that could happen.
Sure.
And so I want to bring that to you. But what the left does not want you to see is that one of the things he says is that, I'm kind of blow one of my punchlines away, in the cities where a cop is investigated for a shooting, crime skyrockets.
Right.
If a cop is not investigated, crime stays the same.
That's not to say that cops shouldn't be investigated.
No, but what happens when the cops are investigated, the cops pull back and crime explodes.
Right.
So what you have with the George Floyd and the cops pulling back in Chicago, I think Tucker Carlson said they had a record number of 65,000 911 calls. I don't feel like I have the ability to explain to you the desperation of people who need cops and how angry I am with people who say we need to defund cops. Tucker had said that for every 10 cops, you reduce homicides by 1. If you want black lives to matter, then you need a more police presence. Now, one of the things you can do is have more police on not just looking for suspects, but walking a beat, driving through the community, talking to the community, rather than just looking for bad guys.
Sure.
Okay. Now that might help go a long way.
Maya, our dear friend, she says if she doesn't do labels, but if she has to have one, she says American of African ancestry. That's the AAA. Wall Builders has an excellent documentary called American History in Black and White. It shows really the corruption of the Democratic Party and why most Americans of African ancestry vote Democrat. Thank you, Maya.
But when they first, after the Civil War, everybody was a Republican.
Right.
Because Republicans freed the slaves.
And then the party of slavery said, no, we need you back. Let's bribe.
Right. 18 murders in 24 hours inside the most violent day in 60 years in Chicago. We've never seen anything like it. A hard-working father killed just before 1 a.m. A West Side High School student murdered 2 hours later. A man killed amid South Side looting at a cell phone store at 12:30. A college freshman who hoped to become a correctional officer gunned down at 4:25. While Chicago was roiled by another day of protest and looting in the wake of George Floyd's murder, 18 people were killed on Sunday, May 31st, making it the single most violent day in Chicago in 6 decades, according to the University of Chicago Crime Lab. From 7 p.m. Friday, May 29th, through 11 p.m. Sunday, May 31st, 25 people were killed and 85 people were shot, wounded by gunfire. In a city with an international reputation for crime, where 900 murders per year were common in the early 1990s, it was the most violent weekend in Chicago's modern history, stretching police resources that were already thin because of protests and looting. We've never seen anything like it at all, says Max Kapustin, a senior research director at the Crime Lab. I don't even know how to put it into context. It's beyond anything that we've ever seen before. These are crimes that will not go soft. Victims that will not see justice. While everybody was parading around George Floyd's dead body, people were looting, people were raping, people were killing, people were robbing, people were burning things down.
Because what you need to understand is, in these inner cities, people of all races, okay, you've got good people and you've got bad people, and in the inner cities you have a majority of, not really a majority, I don't want to say that, but you have more bad people than in other areas, okay? And so you're not going to cure the evil in someone, whether they are black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you name it, by protesting and rioting, but rather you will create the perfect climate and the perfect so if you are a rapist, if you are a thief, if you are a murderer, if you want to kill someone,
let me walk back what Michelle said real quick, because I can see YouTube really coming after you for what you just said. She did not mean majority.
I took that back.
I know.
There are more people in the inner cities that are bad.
It's a crime-ridden area, and you got to be careful.
It's a more condensed area.
There you go.
Of crime, okay, yeah. But riots or peaceful protests, do not then all of a sudden make those bad people that do exist good and not do those things. As a matter of fact, if I was a bad person and I was a rapist or I wanted to kill someone, I would take advantage.
Sometimes
of
I feel
this
like Michelle
situation.
Really, it's kind of like, why would you say something like that? Okay, maybe don't say something like that.
Anyway,
if you were
everybody understands what I'm trying to say here.
I know,
okay?
but I don't think YouTube will.
They're not going to take me out for that. They'll take me out for something else. Not that. This is the perfect opportunity, and they took advantage of it to the nth degree.
Michelle doesn't think like a criminal.
They took advantage of it. And the people that were behind this movement didn't care.
Reverend Michael Flagger, a longtime crusader against gun violence, who leads St. Sabina Church in Auburn, Gresham, said it was open season last weekend in his neighborhood and others on the south and west sides. On Saturday and particularly Sunday, I heard people saying all over, "Hey, there's no police anywhere. Police ain't doing nothing." I sat and watched a store looted for over an hour. No police came. I got in my car and drove around to some other places getting looted and didn't see any police anywhere. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and she's the one who got a haircut when nobody else could because she says she's the face of Chicago. So she
I
needs
have
to have the haircut. Said on May 31st alone, Chicago's 911 emergency center received 65,000 calls for all types of services, 50,000 more than on a usual day. And guess what? They wanted the police. They needed the police, and the police weren't there to answer those calls. You called 911, and nobody was going to come. Nobody was coming.
So here's my question, and this is a legit question. This is a legit question. How many murders did you say took place, or how many deaths? Do you
25
remember?
deaths, 85 shootings.
Okay, so 25 deaths and 85 shootings. This is the problem that I have with the movement. I don't have to name it. With what is happening right now.
You can say defund the police.
My Christian friends are behind this.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that I have. They say Black Lives Matter, and they do. Okay? But what you are saying when you condone, because you are condoning these actions, is that Black Lives Matter more than even the Black lives that were probably lost.
The Black lives that you pick matter.
Exactly. And it's wrong. You can't just say what happened to George Floyd, who was arrested 9 times, by the way, and when he was arrested this time had drugs in his system.
Right.
Okay? You can't just say, well, this tragedy happened and I'm going to protest that, but I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
About these deaths that happened as a result of the protest. It's just collateral damage.
Flagger noted that systemic problems that have plagued minority communities for decades, like joblessness, food insecurity, and lack of housing, were already heightened by COVID-19, and which made a bad situation worse. Floyd's killing in Minnesota simply brought further to the forefront hopelessness and anger felt by those living in blighted communities. It's like a time bomb out there. People are on edge. People are angry. People are poor, and they don't even know when it's going to change. So he says, we have to address systemic racism and poverty and black folks being shot down and killed out here like dogs. But the homicide victims in Chicago are young black men, and the suspects are too.
Why is it that allowing Chicago to descend into pure chaos, so much so that they have to have 65,000 911 calls, okay, creating a legit war zone is better for the black community than it was before all of this started? Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing the arguments. But this is how it's birthed. This is how it's happened. We have to let everybody go completely insane and crazy, and that's just okay. Bad people are bad people, and bad people should be stopped.
This is
regardless of
Tayona
color of their skin.
Lofton. She matters. She matters. She was shot Sunday while waiting outside of a gas station. Tayona Lofton of Gresham last Sunday started on a high note. The 18-year-old recently finished her senior year at Perspectives Leadership Academy, and her family was holding a socially distanced graduation parade to honor the occasion. While the day started out perfect, a trip to a gas station at the corner of 81st and Racine, a half mile south of St. Sabina, later that day quickly turned into the most harrowing experience of her life. As she waited in line outside of the store, an SUV pulled up and someone inside opened fire into the crowd, striking Lofton and 2 others. Struck near her elbow, she tried repeatedly to call 911 for help. When I needed help to call the police and stuff, nobody responded, nobody answered. My mom had to come from home, and we had to get to the hospital.
Unbelievable.
On the way to the Little Company of Mary Hospital in Evergreen Park, Lofton peered out her mother's car window and saw the madness that was unfolding outside. It was just people jumping out of their cars and into stores and stealing and looting. Police was letting them do whatever they wanted. They did not care. Nobody cared. Because a bullet struck an artery, she was immediately transferred to the trauma unit for surgery. After being released Wednesday, she now faces months of physical therapy.
Unbelievable. And I can hear, again, and I am going to pick on my Christian friends. I totally am. I can hear them say, but I'm not behind that. But you don't understand. When you are behind this narrative that is being false-fed and pre-planned,
so
you are supporting this.
Kapusin of University UFC's crime lab said massive upheavals or protests typically require police departments to divert to the demonstrations. So when CPD has to turn its attention elsewhere, there's suddenly this vacuum that opens up, and you unfortunately see a picture like you saw last weekend where you see an absurd amount of carnage, people getting injured and killed. Those forces are still there. So the Black Lives Matter movement and people out there saying defund the police, social workers weren't going to get that girl to the hospital. They want social workers.
Well, and social workers aren't going to investigate.
No.
Social workers aren't going to find who did this. They aren't going to arrest who did this.
Right. Exactly.
All right? And so you need to understand. It's like, well, I don't want that to happen. I just want to care more about black people. Fine. Yes. Care more about black people all day long. But this movement, this evil satanic movement that you are backing and supporting, this is the fruit of it. And the Bible tells us that we should judge something
by its fruit.
Right. And I judge this by its fruit, and it's rotten.
House committee holds hearing on police reform, and they brought in George Floyd's brother to talk about how police need to be reformed and stuff like that. Here's Dan Bongino on the police defunding.
I receive an email or a text a few times a year notifying me about the death or injury of a police officer I knew, worked with, or knew someone I worked with. Imagine if that was happening at your job. Think about that just for a minute. God forbid you found out a coworker of yours was killed or injured in the line of duty in the course of doing their job. You didn't just get the text. You got this text a couple times a year. That's policing. That's what they do. They risk their own lives for yours. I'll say in closing, I spoke at an event for police officers years ago, and a spouse of one of these heroes said this. She said, the most wonderful sound in the world for the spouse of a police officer is the sound of Velcro at night. Maybe saying, why Velcro? Because it's how a police officer's body armor is secured to their bodies. And when that body armor comes off and that sound echoes in their ears, the families of these heroes know that they're finally home safely. I ask you please, with the greatest of respect and humility, please stop this defund the police abomination before someone gets hurt. Thank you for your time.
Well said.
So here's Matt Gaetz. And he's all these people were there. A bunch of radical lefties and social justice warriors. He asked them all to raise their hand if they wanted to defund the police.
If you believe that we should defund the police, will you please raise your hand? Mr. Yes, is there anyone on the... Okay, so that's unifying and wonderful that here we are gathered... I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I actually have an answer to that.
Okay. Well, I'm sure someone will be able to ask you that question, but I've limited time here. I didn't see anyone raise their hand to defund the police. I certainly didn't see any of the Republican witnesses do that. And so I'm going to now go through and see where that sentiment may have been reflected. Here's a tweet from two of our congressional colleagues supporting this group, Black Visions Minnesota. And then next, please. And then here's that group, that same group, Black Visions Minnesota, that my congressional colleagues are raising money for, saying that we should end the police. And can we go to the next one? And then here's that same organization retweeting rebel scum, abolish the police. And then here's the same group saying that instead of police, we need therapists, doctors, and street medics, not cops, Mr. Bongino. In your experience, every time someone calls 911, would a therapist or a medic be sufficient, or sometimes do people need cops?
I'm quite unclear how a medic is going to help with an armed subject who's assaulting his wife in a domestic violence situation or elsewhere. I'm not sure how that's going to be of any value.
And here again is that same group saying that we need lasers to disorient surveillance cameras, and we need water balloons filled with milk to throw at people. Again, this is the organization that my congressional colleagues are raising money to support. If we could go to the next one. And then here again, that same organization that multiple members of Congress are supporting, saying it's not enough to only abolish police or prisons. We need to abolish race, abolish ICE, abolish the military, abolish the state, abolish the borders. And again, this is what our colleagues are raising money for. And it's not just any member of Congress. It's actually one of our treasured colleagues on the Judiciary Committee, the gentlelady from Washington, raising money for this very same organization.
Wow, love Matt Gaetz.
Absolutely.
And
crazy.
that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you're going to support an organization, you are supporting everything that they are about. You don't get to pick and choose. You don't get to say, well, I'm not for that they do, but I am going to raise money for them. It's kind of like saying with Planned Parenthood, well, I'm not for the fact that they kill babies in the womb, but they do other useful things, so here's my money.
Yeah.
Can you just use my money for the mammograms? Oh, wait, they don't do mammograms. Can you just use my money for the women's health care that you do? They're going to take your money and they're going to use it to kill babies.
Yeah, I want to play for you, if I can get the audio here for what are we going to have left in our community? Alderman reacts to panic, sorrow, and unrest. Let's see, where does it start at? I don't know if I can find it. The Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago was on a conference call. And
they played it on Tucker last night.
Right, exactly. It's absolutely crazy.
It's hard to tell if she knew that there were other people listening.
Right.
Because she's being told, listen, we've got chaos happening in our cities. And she tells this guy that he's full of shit.
Right.
And curse words, the F-bomb gets thrown back and forth at each other. And it was just like, oh my gosh, these are your people. She literally said, when he was saying, listen, we've got to do something. We have chaos. She literally says, you're full of shit, meaning it's not happening. She is the equivalent of a climate denier, right? She is a violence, riot, carnage, 65,000 911 calls, denier.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not going to do anything about it because it's not happening because you're full of shit.
Exactly.
That was the call.
Pretty much, yeah. So,
that's Mayor Lightfoot. Heavy hand Lightfoot.
So I'm just going to go ahead and start this. You're not going to hear the back story where one of the councilmen was what he was saying to Mayor Lightfoot, but you're going to hear her response here, if I can get it to play.
There she is.
I actually, come on. I know you have news for us. Jeez. Here we go. Come on. Here we go.
I think you're 100%.
There's curse word. Oh, they bleep it out here.
If you think
no offense, you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of?
If you think we were not ready and we stood by and let the neighborhood go up, there's nothing intelligent that I can say to you.
Well, maybe you should come out and see what's going on.
There was way more to that call. What he said to start with.
Officials railing against the mayor for failing to protect the city during the riots and the looting. This is the
two Walgreens were like burned down in his own district.
Here to discuss it, Fox News political analyst
and she says,
and author of Taken for Granted.
If you think we weren't ready and we just let it happen, you weren't ready. You did let it happen.
Say it. You had 132 officers injured, 48 shootings, 17 homicides, all on one day on May 31st. They were not ready.
Yeah, no, they weren't ready, and it's a complete lie that she's telling. You know, from Mayor Rahm Emanuel to Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the city officials there have completely and totally failed, and every alderman has every right to be upset. But here's the issue that I'm having. I had a 2-hour Instagram live with a very popular hip-hop radio personality in Chicago. I encourage everybody to go look at that, Adriano Caldwell, where they're defending this mayor, which is so problematic. Here's why. On May 31st, the city 911 center received 65,000 calls to 911. That's 50,000 more than they typically get. The mayor requested 375,000 National Guards members, and instead of pushing them throughout the city, she said, no, we're going to protect the downtown communities and those businesses, which is typically where white people live. And there's nothing wrong with protecting those areas, but she left the disenfranchised people, the businesses that are minority owned on the south and west sides, available for the looters and rioters. This is not a mayor who's for the people. This is not a mayor who the people, African Americans, who mostly put her in office, this is not who they picked. She is an elitist, and she's proven it time and time again, and she's leaving the city residents unsafe. I love that they put their shoes in bags that they're taking.
Don't give me that.
Serious the concerns that we had seen in the neighborhoods, and it was not only falling on deaf ears, it was outright dismissed. A number of aldermen and I have stepped up and asked for the National Guard to come and assist our police officers in maintaining the safety and security of our city so that they could provide presence so that our police could do their job, and that plea was actually ignored again.
He was the one that we heard in the bump-in sound when he was told he was full of you-know-what. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think that's true, and I've met with some of these aldermen who feel that her leadership is problematic. You keep in mind, this is 1 year on the job for her, and already she's considered a failure. She gets an F for safety. Now we think about the liberals throughout the country who are saying, defund the police, one of the stupidest mottos you can have at this particular point. Say that to the people of Chicago. Say that to the poor black people that are living there. They don't want to see the police defunded. They want to see more police in their communities, community policing.
I do too.
All right, so I want to go to, finally, absolutely crazy. Couple things here. Thank you, Dan Bongino, for that. New York City bots, Mike O'Mara. The way police are being treated, the way police are being portrayed, they are being portrayed like animals, and it's the reverse of what's happening. Oh, you're just pulling black men over because you think that they're animals and you're treating us like animals. And so the world has now turned on cops and is treating them like animals.
This isn't stained by someone in Minneapolis. It's still got a shine on it. And so do theirs. So do theirs. Stop treating us like animals and thugs, and start treating us with some respect. That's what we're here today to say. We've been left out of the conversation. We've been vilified. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Trying to make us embarrassed of our profession. 375 million interactions. Overwhelmingly positive. Nobody talks about all the police officers that were killed in the last week in the United States of America, and there were a number of them. We don't condone Minneapolis. We roundly reject what he did as disgusting. It's disgusting. It's not what we do. It's not what police officers do. Our legislators abandoned us. The press is vilifying us. Well, you know what, guys? I'm proud to be a cop. And I'm going to continue to be proud to be a cop until the day I retire. And that's all I have to say.
Wow. That was a viral little clip
it's really
there.
powerful.
And so this video here is Horatio sent to me, and very interesting. And I'm going to play just a few clips here for you. And my paper. This is the guy. Roland Fryer, professor of economics at Harvard University. His work on education, inequality, and race has been widely cited in media outlets and in congressional testimony. In this wide-ranging conversation on events of the past 10 days, the Goodfellows discuss Roland's experiences with law enforcement as a teenager. We're going to skip over that. And then they discuss one of the more radical proposals stemming from the George Floyd murder, defunding the police departments. So let me go here to the beginning where he talks about his first study and the conclusions that black men are not shot at by police in large numbers. And this was, his study was done, I want to say, he'll tell you the numbers, 2013, 14 maybe. And in 15, there were 38 unarmed black men killed by cops. Last year, there were 10.
Does he go over those numbers?
No, he doesn't go over the new numbers. He's going over his previous numbers. I'm saying that the numbers are actually going down.
Yeah.
So you would say that people would say there's progress.
Yeah.
That they disproportionately used lethal violence. Now, this goes against the grain of all that people kind of assume or think they know on this subject. Can you tell us a bit about that paper and how you came to that?
It's not my ministry. Data is my ministry. So I decided to collect a lot of data on this subject. We used the New York City stop and frisk data that has 5 million observations from 2003 or so to 2013. And what's nice about that data set is it has lower level uses of force, from putting your hands on someone to actually using a baton, or putting them in handcuffs when they're actually not arrested, things like that. And the reason that's important is that putting
them in handcuffs when you're not arrested, I believe that should not be a thing, actually.
Hands on someone in the process of arresting them doesn't get coded. That's not considered a use of force by most police departments. That's just kind of standard operating procedures. So we were able to collect that data, which was from the police perspective. The Bureau of Justice Statistics also collects other data from the civilian perspective, and those were on lower level uses of force. The more ambitious part of that was through freedom of information requests and conversations with lots of police departments, were able to work with 10 municipalities to put together a pretty large database on police shootings. Now, I'm going to make one really important statistical point. The key to our database about police shootings is that we not only have the shootings that happen, in statistical parlance, John and I call them the ones, but we also have a series of observations where shootings might have been justified, but shootings didn't happen. And I just want to stress that, particularly given the debate that's going on, this is a really key part of the analysis. And here's what we found. On the lower level uses of force, there are large racial differences in how force is used, okay? So in a average traffic stop in the stop and frisk data, blacks were 53% more likely to have force used on them in a stop. If you were to ask civilians their perspective in the civilian police contact survey, that 53% goes up to 300%. Okay, so no matter what data set we use, there are large racial differences in use of force. Let me just caveat that by saying that even when the police report that the subject, if you will, is fully compliant, that might be one of the more depressing things that we found that hasn't gotten much coverage, which is even when the police officer checks off the person was fully compliant, black people are more than 20% more likely in those interactions to have force used upon them. Okay, that was part A of the paper. Part B of the paper was to use that data that we collected from the police departments to understand whether or not there were racial differences in officer-involved shootings. You said lethal force. I want to just clarify that a bit by saying officer-involved shootings. So things like George Floyd would not be captured here because that was not a shooting. That was something different. In that data, we find no racial differences no matter what we do with the data. Okay? And I just want to be clear about something else. This was a surprise to me, partly because of my own lived experience, partly because of the part A of the paper. We had 8 full-time research assistants who gathered that data. Police reports in officer-involved shootings come as 50-page documents. We took that and transformed that into 200 explanatory variables, etc. Okay? after we did that and we found this result, we hired 8 new research assistants, gave them the raw data, and had them code it up again, just to ensure. Okay? I told one of my colleagues that, thinking this would show him how rigorous I am, and his response was, "Wow, you have too much research money." But you get what I'm saying. Okay? And we were really trying to be as careful as we could be, and we just didn't find any racial differences. Here's one of the things I think is really interesting. In the Houston data, we not only have the kind of ones and the zeros, but in Houston, on the strong hip, they carry a Smith & Wesson or a Glock, a police pistol. On the weak hip, they carry a taser. And so one of the, as economists would call it, discrete choice estimations one can do here is whether or not in an interaction you're more likely to choose the pistol or the taser. Okay? And what we found, again, is in those interactions, race was not important. It didn't predict whether or not you shot with a pistol or a taser. And so that was surprising, and that's what you see written about. But I want to just, I hope we can open up for discussion. I'm tired of hearing my.
So that was so huge, and I understand what he was saying was he comes from his own experience of having a bad experience with police.
Yeah.
So he's coming at it expecting the data to show, especially from the media, especially from what he hears from everybody, is black people are being gunned down at X,
and treated more harshly.
But he says they are more likely to have hands put on them. 20% more times to have a police force. Now, what he doesn't say in there is that, hey, if black men are more likely, 85% committing the crimes, and my explanation, what if the portrayal of the police for the black community causes some sort of vocal or something, right. But he does put the caveat that the police check the box compliant.
Okay, so pause right here. Patriot Gallery has a video that we did on Resistance Chicks last night premiering. Okay, if you want some good news, you are more than welcome to finish
she
this.
Set it forward like 15
I
minutes.
asked her, she said she liked the numbers 10, so she wanted to keep it at 10. Okay, so you are more than welcome to stop this stream and go and join the premiere.
I only have
I'm not even sure that we can premiere
15 minutes
and live at the same time.
Mom.
No, it's already gone, Leah. It's already done. It's over.
Okay. Put me forward 15 minutes. Okay, I have. So
she
this
wanted
is
those
really
numbers.
important. This is really important to me. The last few things, I did not know that. She didn't tell me 10 o'clock. All right, and I would have played this first. So let me go over here. I want to go to.
We'll go quickly.
But these were really important. Like I did the whole show to get to this video.
Okay.
Okay, and here is what he talks about when these shootings happen in these in these cities.
And quickly, what the kind of outcome was.
Absolutely.
Let me see. Go back here just a minute. Come on, baby.
Yeah, and I'm kind of itching to get HR in because he knows a bit about lethal violence from the military side, but we'll hold off and turn to the general just in a minute. Let's come back to the investigations that don't quite have the intended outcome, because this is another really surprising finding. Tell us about how you went about that research and quickly what the kind of outcome was.
Absolutely. So it's the companion paper to the first one. Once you realize there are racial differences in lower level, or at least once you document the racial differences in lower level use of force, the natural question is, what should we do about it? Well, the federal government in 1992 granted the Attorney General the power to investigate police departments who might have a pattern or practice of systemic discrimination in a way that violates the Constitution. This came as a result after the first viral video that I know about, which is the Rodney King beatings in LA. So this was as a result from that. So what we did was we put all these investigations together. We turned our lab into a FOIA machine and got all the crime rates, et cetera, from lots of police departments hundreds of police departments across the country. And to put it succinctly, here's what we found. In general, investigations are relatively benign. Okay, so on average, when a city is investigated using this pattern of practice investigation, if anything, crime goes down a little bit, but not a lot happens. but there's a lot of heterogeneity. Some investigations are associated with really large increases in crime, and others purely zero. And what we found was that the thing that delineates the data is investigations that happen when they are preceded by a viral incident, right? So there's social unrest, you go in and you investigate. So examples of that are Ferguson, Chicago, Baltimore, Riverside in the 90s, etc. Those cases are associated with large increases in homicide and total crime. And when I say large, I mean very large, okay? We estimate on average over the next 2 years, there's 450 excess homicides relative to control cities, okay? And 33,000 excess felony crimes. And the reason, our leading theory about why, is that the quantity of policing goes down. So in Chicago, in the month before the investigation and the month after the investigation, police activity, contact with civilians, goes down 90%. It goes down 46% in St. Louis. It goes down nearly 60% in Riverside. And in Baltimore, it literally goes to zero. Okay? So...
zero, no police.
And let me just be super clear before we open this up. This does not mean we should not investigate police departments.
Right.
There are other ways, right? In Minnesota right now, they have charged the officers. That's an option. There are other ways to do it. And what the data is basically telling us, surprise, surprise, is that there's no such thing as a free lunch.
The data says that when you investigate, the people don't go into the communities
to do is
anymore.
think about how we investigate police departments, how we root out the bad cops without changing the behavior of the good ones. And that, John is smarter than I am, so he can figure that one out, because that's one heck of a hard economic problem to figure out how to actually do that.
Yeah, and it's really important, that point you just made at the end there. I spent some time also this...
So now I want to go over here.
So one comment on that is that what he is saying here is proof that the movement, especially the defund the police movement,
when they come in and make a mess of everything,
is saying we're okay with people murdering people and people treating each other terribly as long as it's not the cops.
What he's
it can
not
be
saying,
anybody, and it can increase and it can skyrocket to the hundreds and thousands, just so long
as
soon
as
it's
the
not
ambulance
the police
chasers come
doing
in,
it.
Al Sharpton, Al Franken, which one? Al Sharpton.
I just stick with Al Sharpton.
Jesse Jackson.
Just stick with those two.
These guys come in and they make a mess of things, and they
make the cities worse. They make the people that live there have to walk in more fear and more caution, and more crime happens.
So why were the soldiers brought into D.C.? Now I want you to hear this.
Under the headline, "Send in the Troops." Do you agree that we need, and I'm going to quote from the article here, an overwhelming show of force to disperse, detain, and ultimately deter lawbreakers, and that the only way to bring the situation under control in some American cities today is for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Yeah, I think there's an unfortunate choice of words there, right? I would say wherever the word dominance has appeared or overwhelming, just put the word protect there, right? Because that's what those soldiers are there for. That's what the National Guard is there for. They're there to protect actually the protesters from looters and criminals who are taking advantage of these protests to advance an extremist or criminal agenda. Right. And they're there to protect the store owners. I mean, think about some of these store owners who spent their whole lives saving for this business that's now in flames.
I think the White House didn't come out quite.
That's why the soldiers are there. And ever since 1794 and the Whiskey Rebellion, federal troops have had a role scores of times across our history. And really the first time that really there were limits placed on who could activate federal forces to do that was in 1858. And you know why? It's because the Army and northern states got sick and tired of governors in border states using federal forces to enforce the fugitive slave laws, right? So this is where that's when you get the decision that, hey, only the president can employ federal troops for domestic restoration of order. And of course, there's been a pattern of very positive uses of federal forces, the federalization of the Guard.
So I wanted to make that point that Donald Trump bringing it in, it was to protect people. And he was just really played it like some sort of hammer down, hate the protesters, kill them, wipe them out, blah, 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 like crazy.
But when you have anarchy, which is essentially what has happened, like I said earlier in the show, you're not going to cure the bad people that do exist, and you can't just say they don't exist. You can't just bury your head in the sand and say, no, there's no evil people. There's no bad, there's no rapists, there's no murderers. You just make it a million times easier for them to commit their crimes, and you don't care about protecting the people that they're going to harm.
Yeah, and then here's what they have to say about defunding the police.
That cling to that kind of a racist ideology. Then on the other side, you have identity politics, right? which also I think celebrates really, not having the kinds of conversations, nobody being allowed to have the kinds of conversations that are necessary to bring us together. And in the middle, I think those who are in the middle need to come together on this issue. To reject the social media, have real conversations within our communities. Now, COVID makes it a little bit more difficult, but I mean, I think this only gets better with us talking about this problem and doing like kind of what we did today. I mean, there's a lot we agree on. Nobody ever gets to that though, because everybody's so stuck on what they disagree about. And if we really did care, if we really did work on what we agree on, I believe we can make progress. I mean, I saw us do it in Iraq with an Iraqi police force that people really didn't like, that over time reformed and became more effective. Schools. I mean, my mother taught in inner city Philadelphia for 35 years.
Right here, see.
To the cops, they understand how damaging this whole thing can be. Yeah, we need to talk. We need to be allowed to talk.
Rhoda, let me come back to you as we draw this to a conclusion. I guess when you were making your way from, what was it you said, knucklehead to football player to math star to young economist to youngest, I think, African American to be tenured at Harvard, along the way you were inspired by the hope that the data and the research that you were able to do on the data would set us free, would at least bring us to a better understanding of the kind of problems that we've been talking about on this show. You still so confident that the data, that hard-headed social scientific research can get us there?
Look, I'm not. I speak my mind because that's how my grandmother taught me. She said, you don't have to be nice, but you got to tell the truth. And I only have 3 friends, and I'm hoping to recruit HR as my 4th one here, and so I'm not that worried about it. Let me just say, get to what you want, your question, but I want to say the following. I understand why folks are frustrated. There's a huge racial achievement gap that's been there for decades, and we've been
One of the things they said in here was that not only is it the police unions that protect bad cops, but it's teacher unions in these inner cities that bad teachers can't be fired.
Wow.
There's a big gap in life expectancy. There's a big gap in wealth. There's a big gap in fill in the blank. I get it. Everyone gets it, and we got to do something about it. Whether I am as confident today that data is the way as I was 20 years ago, no, I'm not. I'm confident that it is necessary, but it is clearly not sufficient. Okay. I think it is necessary because we need to build policies that are smart. I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, but
he doesn't really have a lot of answers. And that's the trick of it. And I do think that he wants more police. And the defund the police is crazy to them. Mm-hmm. I think I missed that on my timestamps. But they're talking about how defunding the police and how they're listening to NPR on the radio, and you have to be crazy leftist. That's what they're all saying. Yeah. You have to be crazy leftist. Defund the police. You can't even think and have conversations and say, well, guess what? Blacks are not being gunned down, but there's racial disparities and here, and here. Yeah. And let's talk about these. Let's talk about getting people. I'm all for school choice. I'm all for, there's so much that can be done. And a lot of it has to do with men marrying the women that they impregnate and raising children up and loving them. If you are loved, then you're taken care of. 2-parent homes are you're never, usually they say if you wait to have a kid till you're out of college and you get married before you have a kid, then you will not be in the poverty level. You just won't. Okay, so. It's a lot of things that they're not teaching children. They're not teaching them, oh, just have sex whenever you want, do whatever you want, you can get married, you can get divorced, it doesn't matter, free. And that's what the Black Lives Matter movement on the foundation is like. There's no mention of fathers here. And so they're perpetuating the same cycle because they want the votes. And I don't want to go too crazy on that. And I want you to watch Mom's video. But I'm going to end on this last video here on this is a simple little video here from Byron Donalds on defunding the police. There might be a swear word here. I'm not sure.
Yesterday I was asked about this movement to defund the police. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Defund the police? What's going to happen in our communities when the police aren't there to protect and serve? Look, I understand, and I want justice for George Floyd also. But defund the police? This is nothing but another radical idea from radical fringe groups who don't want real protection in our communities. Right. What they want is anarchy, and what they want is mob rule. Listen, when I was 16 years old, I was held up at gunpoint, and I was robbed. My mother didn't call some fringe group to protect me. She called the police so that they could take my statement and try to solve the crime that had happened to me. Like I said, these people who want to defund the police, what they want is for their political agenda to be moved forward at warp speed in our country. Right. They must be stopped, not just today, by ending this stupid, radical idea in its tracks, but they have to be defeated at the ballot box. Without the police, you don't have security. Without the police, you don't have safety. And if you don't have safety, and if you don't have security, then you cannot continue the greatest experiment man has ever known, which is the United States of America. Defund the police? No, that is idiocy on the highest level.
Wow. Well said.
Byron Donald is running for Congress, and I hope he wins.
Yeah, me too.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on our...
I want you to roll over immediately. Patriot Gallery's video is premiering. It was excellent. You will be encouraged.
Watched that last night. We were here last night. I was watching.
I was sitting right there eating ribs and potatoes, and Leah was in the other room. So we're going to sign off so that you guys can go straight there. So we love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's actually the truth, we will be live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly roundup of news. So thank you, Leah, for putting together this special report, because it's really important to know.
Try to expose the BLM Foundation. You need to know what's behind it. The foundation destroying the family,
and what the ramifications are if you defund the police.
And what happens when you defund the police? You get Chicago this weekend, and 65,000 911 calls, and nobody there to answer them.
Right. Exactly. That's a far greater tragedy because it's affecting far more people than just George Floyd. George Floyd's killers will be brought to justice.
But what about
say that for all of the other
65,000 911 calls? There's justice?
There won't be, because there won't be any investigations.
Right. There's not enough cops on the beat.
Right. Well, not just that, but all the evidence will be destroyed. There won't be any path to follow. So we love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in a couple of days. And I'll probably try to do a Bible study tomorrow in the afternoon. So, all right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Was called